I'm here by a miracle. In fact, they gave me 24 hours to live.
They gave you 24 hours to live when you were born.
The doctor arrives, my mother crying, and they told her, look, this child hasn't developed properly. He's very weak. We don't know what's going to happen to him, but he probably won't be able to survive. I used to make CD copies for my teachers, and I built custom computers for them.
So you're telling me you actually do business while dancing?
Yes, a lot.
Someone who's a generalist doesn't go one way or the other, because that's another thing, right? You hook up, right? Dancing.
It's purely a matter of statistics. And in this country, we're also really into crucifying people out, saying, oh, look what this guy said.
And now you're also working with companies like Google or IKEA, giving classes to their people, right? They say it can reduce the risk of developing dementia by up to 76%.
For me and for many people who have studied it, dance is a form of meditation.
If you could truly talk to yourself from exactly 30 years ago, what valuable advice would you share?
You know, I'd tell myself to dance.
How much money you have come to lose in a project?
I've died, huh?
Well, welcome. First official episode of the Business Shark podcast. I was so looking forward to today. Pablo Soria, podcast host. And what better way to do it than with a guest like Iván Olcina, welcome.
How are you, Pablo? How are you?
All right, here we are. A pleasure to be here.
A pleasure. And hey, I'm delighted to collaborate on such interesting projects.
That's great. I'm really glad. Today was tough, right? How it's raining, unbelievable. Parking?
I don't mind the rain. I actually came by metro.
Ah, well, hey, that's great. Very eco-friendly. That's how I get work done. You working while you work, right? That's how I
work.
Well, that's great.
Time.
What was I going to say? Just to start warming up for the interview. Well, Iván, you told me a bit off camera. I love learning about people's personal lives. And you told me a little about yourself, about your childhood, and specifically about your birth.
And I
would like you to share a bit of that with the people here on the podcast, because I think it definitely won't leave them indifferent.
Well, then we are starting the podcast off strong. Look, Pablo, just so you get an idea, I'm here by a miracle. I always say that I'm here by a miracle. Why is that? Because I was born at 6 months. At 6 months, I already wanted to come out, and my mom noticed something strange and went to the hospital. And she said, it can't be that this child already wants to come out. How is that possible? So the doctor told her, don't worry, just take this medication. And stay calm. In 3 months, come back here and everything will be fine. Well, 5 days later, I was already there, wanting to come out. It was like I already wanted to stir things up.
Wow, that's amazing. And
of course, that is absolutely correct. And I completely agree with your assessment of the situation. There is no doubt whatsoever regarding the accuracy of your statement. And I fully concur with everything you have expressed.
They gave you 24 hours to live when you were born?
And here I am, having just turned 40.
Wow, that's amazing. First of all, congratulations, but wow, I think, my goodness, Madrid.
The scene that my family always remembers, and it's when the doctor comes in, my mother is crying, and they told her, look, this child hasn't developed properly, he's very weak, we don't know what's going to happen to him, but he probably won't survive. He'll have 24 hours to live. So at that moment, my grandfather is very blunt. I'll have to bring him here on the podcast for you to interview. He's still alive, grabbed the doctor and said, you can say whatever you want, but I'm going to see this boy play football.
That's amazing. Wow, that's incredible. My goodness, what a situation, right? And how are you? How are you after?
No, in the end, the concept of beginnings, much like in the dynamic and often unpredictable world of business, holds a profound significance. Just as a new venture or a fresh project in the business realm requires careful planning, strategic foresight, and a clear vision to lay a solid foundation for future success. So to do all of the forms of beginnings. They are critical junctures that set the trajectory for everything that follows, demanding attention to detail and a comprehensive understanding of the initial steps involved, right?
In the end, beginnings were never easy, were they? Of course,
then I got stable. You know, it's like a computer. At first you make mistakes, at the beginning just errors, but then you set it up right, and it's like until
you get it just exactly right, you know, right?
And then the server just stays stable.
That's great. That's really great. And to continue a bit with your introduction, imagine right now that we're at the beach, okay? We're at the beach and suddenly I meet you and I ask you, hey, Ivan, what do you do for a living? Tell me a bit about yourself. What would you say?
Look, that's a question that when people ask me, I do so many things that you know what I do, I avoid it and ask the other person what they do for a living. So I would say to you, Pablo, what do you do for a living? And you will give me an answer, right? Tell me, for example, I have a podcast, right? Yes. Entrepreneur, right? And right there, even if you don't realize it, I'd already be selling you something. I'd already be convincing you of something. I would say, well, Pablo, I have a business club, the Madrid Business Club, which I just started now. And I have some really powerful entrepreneurs who could come on your podcast. And without even telling you what I do, you've already started to get in sync with me a little. I like doing that.
Lately, the same thing happens to me. People ask me, what do you do for a living? Man, the thing is, I do so many things that I don't even know where to start, because now the latest is the restaurant thing. So you ask yourself, do I do a lot or not? I'm an entrepreneur. I love it when people ask me, what do you do? Well, I'm an entrepreneur. I love starting things. In the end, we are
Connectors, because in the end, you know so many people and help so much. I'm really someone who likes to help. I don't know if you've ever done the Enneagram. Do you know what the Enneagram is?
No, I've never done it.
It's a psychology thing where they give you some pretty extensive tests and it reveals a bit about your personality. I recommend everyone do it because you discover things about yourself you didn't know.
That's great. How interesting. Hey, I'm going to do it.
And I came out as a helper, an achiever, an optimist. All three things, I really like them. But of course, if you don't see it and no one tells you, if you don't have the helper side, maybe you don't realize. I've realized that I love helping people.
It's really important to know yourself. Many times I think that even me,
But
in general, people don't really know themselves. I mean, they act just to act because you have to do things, but you don't know why, right? What's behind those actions?
exactly. And also with the people we live with, it's super important that we are clear about what each person is like.
And then, of course, I mean, childhood was a complicated time, especially your birth. And then I understand that until you really got on your feet, etc., etc. Those were some tough moments. But then here you are, you're doing great. And hey, on top of that, you're looking elegant and all dressed up. I know you. There are
Many people tell me their problems because you always have a friend going through a tough time. Or a business owner says, things are bad for me and my company. And I always tell them, don't worry, I've been through much worse.
of course, absolutely.
Reality, for sure.
Absolutely, yes, yes. And well, to move a bit toward the topic of entrepreneurship, the topic of business, what field are you in? So tell us a little bit. Have your businesses always usually, what field are they in? Are they in marketing, hospitality, or which one?
I have a marketing agency. Okay. That's the foundation, let's say. And it's the company I've been running for almost 20 years now. And it's, let's say, my base. Then I start new businesses. You know that marketing ultimately gives you a lot of contacts, a lot of opportunities. And well, I've gotten into different sectors. But anyway, the foundation is marketing. And then I start little things on the side to have fun.
That's great because on top of that, within your marketing agency, you really knew how to find your niche. And you specialize in Google reviews, right? Because people don't realize how important Google reviews are, or the Google My Business card that shows up when you search, right? It pops up, right? Tell us a bit about it because I find it really interesting.
That's right. Look, there was a before and after in my company once we got into that part of Google and that area of positioning, okay? I've always liked staying up to date, always learning a lot. And suddenly I realized that everyone around me, my clients, are all in the same situation. They're all struggling with the issue of reviews. Someone left me a negative review. Now, what do I do? Can't I delete it? Can't I do something about it? So I see there's a need in the market and that people feel defenseless. In reality, it would depend on the giant that is Google, and we always have to adapt to its algorithm, to what it wants to display, to the reviews, to the ratings, all of that. So we started working really hard on that topic and creating a system so that companies can improve in that area. Any company, whether it's a clinic, a restaurant, or a bakery.
That's great. How interesting. So what you mainly focus on is when people leave a review about your business, what you do is manage them, right? And even improve your ranking in the browser. Of course, the
System on one hand is to get those reviews to make sure you receive a lot of positive reviews. Obviously, no one is safe from getting negative ones, but the idea is to keep those to a minimum. Yes, and then to deal with them, respond to them, and properly manage your reputation.
that's great. How interesting.
Before, with Google, you only had to worry about ranking on Google. You say, I'm first, I'm second. But now you have to worry about two things. You have to worry about your ranking and your rating, your reviews, because even if people find you first, if the first two reviews they see are negative, you're losing customers.
Yeah, I mean, I think people often focus on their marketing campaigns, but primarily on the usual stuff like social media, SEO, and that kind of thing. But they don't truly see how incredibly important damn customer reviews actually are, right?
Well, nowadays, that's the most important thing. I always tell the people I meet day to day, my contacts, business owners, I tell them, how do you search on Google? They say, well, I search here, I check the reviews and I look. Well, people search for your business the same way.
That's good. That's interesting. And then what I'm realizing, well, I also work in marketing and all that. And what I've noticed is that, first of all, it's not the right way to say it, but the advertising and marketing sector is totally saturated. It's getting worse and worse, right? And you've managed to carve out a niche for yourself there very well. Congratulations, because you've really done a great job with that.
Well, it's about seeing the needs of the audience and businesses a bit and finding a way to get in there. I've always tried to do that since I started. Now it's been with the whole reviews thing, that's true, but honestly, that's how it was from the beginning.
Let's go back to the beginning. In the end, business and life in general, when you start out, it's always really complicated, right? In the end, you have to take risks. You have to keep betting on it, right? Did you come from a well-off family, a family with money? How did you get started? I'd like to know a bit about that.
Actually, I come from a very humble and modest family background. We never had any big luxuries or lots of houses or many cars or anything like that. Honestly, I've always been the one who has actively looked for significant opportunities in life ever since I was very young. It's been widely said that even back in school, I already possessed a clear business knack, and I was probably diligently trading cards with absolutely everyone, even with the older, more experienced kids. And well, I've always been precisely like that. Always, always, always. I started with trading cards. Then in high school, I was closer to my teachers than to my classmates. That's great. I used to make CD copies for my teachers, and I built custom computers for them. I mean, I was already doing this at 16. I would go and build computers for my teachers, but
So, are you telling me you started out with no money?
well, without money from a family, without many resources, obviously. I mean,
Your company, did you start it without money or did you have some capital?
I saved up, but from the little things I was doing, like building computers, fixing computers for my teachers and my coaches, I've always gone along really well with people a bit older than me, with people of greater age. And now the opposite is happening to me. Now I find myself getting along better with young people because I see the talent and I see people similar to me.
That's great. And now, well, you know that there are a lot of people nowadays who are starting up marketing agencies. What would you say to those people who are 18 or 20 years old and want to start a marketing agency, seeing how competitive the sector is? Is it a reality? Is it not? Is it easy? Is it complicated? Give them some advice.
Look, starting a marketing agency or offering any marketing service is, on one hand, easy because it doesn't require an investment. Unless you go crazy with an office or by hiring really good people. Honestly, I would tell people to start calmly. Also, be careful with your personal investments because young people right now have a really hard time becoming independent.
Things are very tough right now.
So when I started, me give you my example, I started out living at my parents' house, of course. I was very young, 17 or 18 years old, and I started little by little with very small fees and being humble with my prices. Right here, honestly, the advice I can give to people who want to start is that they need to identify themselves and stand out. If you want to do, for example, luxury social media that's super personalized with custom reels, daily posts, and so on, then position yourself in that niche. But if you want to reach a lot of people, for example, and offer a mass market service, then position yourself for that. You have to set yourself apart. You can offer the same service to every company.
Yes, I think in the end, what you're saying, specialization is extremely important. I mean, I think it's super important because in the end, those who are generalists doesn't really go one way or the other. You have to know how to aim, right? And on the other hand, you were talking about the issue of time. I'm a big supporter of what you're saying. I also started my businesses without money. And in the end, in this life, there are two things you can invest, either time or money. And I invested my time just like you did. So I feel very involved and very similar to you. So I think that's a great piece of advice you're giving to everyone.
And you also have to be very practical at the beginning. It's fine to be very demanding and want to do things perfectly, but maybe at first that's not necessary, at least until you have some stability. Look, I'm going to tell you something really funny. When I started the company, I must have been about 19 or 20 years old. And the whole website thing was just starting out. Small businesses still didn't have websites. Google had just come out. There were no social networks. And my parents had moved to Brunete, a town near Madrid. Okay, so this is going to sound funny to you, but every business in that town, in Brunete, had the same website made by me. I went to each one because I did everything myself. I had just started the company. I was the salesperson, the programmer. I was everything. I took an HTML course, okay? Very basic. And with that course, I started making websites and used the same template for every business in town. So the auto repair shop had the same website as the veterinary clinic.
That's great. Look, I think you just said something really important too, which is that when you start out, you literally have to be like an octopus. You have to go out and do everything. And you have to do what you like and what you don't like as well.
And even more so when you don't have that investment, you have to
do everything. So I also think that's very important for people to know because, for example, at what age did you start to get into entrepreneurship a bit?
To really start as an entrepreneur, as a business owner. I was already 18 years old. Look, I finished high school and took the university entrance exam. I was really looking forward to studying computer science because everyone had told me it was amazing. But when I got to university, I found myself, there were some really, really geeky people, but not computer geeks in the traditional sense more, like Lord of the Rings geeks, individuals deeply immersed in fantasy worlds, people who played intricate role-playing games and engaged in elaborate cosplay. And I distinctly remember thinking to myself, what exactly am I doing here in this environment? Plus, I had a strong desire to learn computer science, to delve into the intricacies of programming and algorithms. And what did I find when I arrived? I found they were primarily teaching foundational subjects such as algebra, advanced physics, and complex mathematics. And I thought, well, there's absolutely nothing about the practical application of computer science here, nothing that truly resonated with my aspirations. So I said to myself, no, this isn't my place, this isn't where I belong or where I can achieve my academic goals. This led me to ponder a fundamental business question. Is it better to actively seek out and acquire new clients, investing significant resources in marketing and sales efforts, or is it more beneficial to focus on nurturing and retaining existing ones, building long-term relationships and ensuring customer loyalty? Well, I think it's a balanced approach, perhaps 50-50. But for me personally, in my experience, it's closer to 50% for each. I have observed a lot of companies and I manage many organizations that unfortunately give a disproportionately higher priority to aggressively acquiring new clients and as a result aren't adequately taking care of their existing clients, often neglecting their needs and failing to foster lasting relationships, which can be detrimental in the long. In the end, it's the same thing a client who will bring you your fee or your UCI every year or your recurring revenue. So it's also super important to retain clients. I think it has to be something in between though. If you don't have a sales network that's constantly bringing in new clients, it's true that your business won't grow. There's a before and after.
Then what I think must be really hard is maintaining quality with 3,000 clients. It must be very difficult. How do you manage that?
In the end, what you have to do is have a very close-knit team by your side where everyone has their own role, people aren't scattered, everyone knows what they have to do, and an amazing team like we do at Allplanet.
That's great. How many people are there at Allplanet?
Right now, there are 18 of us, plus some external collaborators. Very
good. And do you work only here in Spain or also abroad? Abroad.
We have many valued clients located in Mexico, as well as clients in Spain and also clients in Colombia. That's truly great because in the end, everyone searches on Google, which is indeed excellent. And
I've heard someone told me that you went from 0 to 3,000 clients in just 3 years, from nothing and without any money.
It really happened when we created this online reputation system dealing with reviews, which was very interesting for everyone. And it also coincided with us building a pretty strong sales network with some top-notch people, and they were selling well. They're still selling every day. We keep going. And how do you
handle client acquisition? How do you do it right now? Is it through social media or how do you sell?
We do everything. We do digital marketing. We also have a street sales force visiting businesses because reputation is super important for all businesses that are out there on the street.
So you go out visiting them one by one?
We have a dedicated team, specifically a sales team, that actively goes out and visits them one by one individually.
That's great. It's almost like selling alarm systems, isn't it?
That's the foundational groundwork, the essential preliminary work that establishes a solid base for our operations and initiatives. We are fortunate to also have numerous esteemed agencies that already collaborate extensively and seamlessly with us, forming invaluable partnerships. These agencies play a crucial and indispensable role because they meticulously handle and manage the vital reputation part for us, diligently safeguarding and enhancing our public image and credibility. They ensure that our standing in the community remains strong and positive, which is an incredibly complex and time-consuming endeavor. You see, in this modern era, it has become increasingly common for everyone to mistakenly believe that everything is inherently very easy to achieve, to accomplish, and to maintain, often underestimating the immense effort, intricate processes, and dedicated resources required to build and sustain a reputable presence and successful operations in any field. Because we're all on social media, everyone has something to show or has a lot of followers. So we think, well, since I have a lot of followers, I'll make sure the dental clinic on the corner gets them too. Each sector has its own strategy. So there's really no big secret other than being truly consistent. At the beginning, you also have to be a good salesperson because at first you're on your own. In the beginning, I didn't have the team I have now. At first, as I mentioned before, I did everything myself. So you have to create a product that's also fairly automated, that allows you to generate subscriptions so you can have more and more recurring income because you
are one of those who think it's better to have a small but recurring product than to hit it big once and keep chasing big wins.
I always prefer small recurring income.
Me too. I think the same way.
I always get these bigger projects and I say, well, okay, that's today's bread, but it's not recurring. I need to know what will come in at the end of the month to pay people, to have your profit. And that's the most important thing.
To pay people, because in the end, when you know how much is going to be generated on a recurring monthly basis, that's when you know how much it's going to cost you and how much you can spend during the month. Because in the end, for example, I often think about projects that are paid per project. As you said, in the end, you have to be selling all the time. You have to constantly be feeding yourself with new clients. But going back a bit to what we were saying before, here, in the end, when you create recurring revenue, what happens is that your client portfolio, boom, 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 it starts out small, but it keeps getting bigger and bigger.
That's right.
And it keeps feeding itself, right? Your own clientele.
That's why I was saying earlier that when you're starting out, it's important to start off, let's say, with a clean slate. I mean, don't start with big expenses, not even on a personal level. I was able to do it because I started out, and it's true that I was living at my parents' house and all that, but maybe if I had moved out, bought a house, which nowadays is crazy well, maybe you just can't live so peacefully. I
think that nowadays it's impossible for any young person to move out and buy a house in Madrid. I have to
say that I did it pretty well, I think. I'm very happy, and it's advice I give to everyone listening to this podcast. When I was young and started the company, I didn't go crazy, I didn't move out, I didn't buy a fancy car. I lived with the resources I had at that time, and what I did was let my company grow little by little. And thanks to that, by the age of 24, I already had, thank you, an apartment in the center of Madrid, which nowadays is like a life insurance for anyone.
But of course, I'm also one of those people who thinks that in the end, when you're young, for example, I'm 25 years old, so I always say that the money I earn, well, I already have my fixed expenses pretty much covered without any problem with a small salary I get from my businesses. And the rest, 100% of it, I reinvest. I reinvest it first in myself and second in my businesses, which are what will ultimately help me build wealth, right? But this thing about buying a supercar or spending 3,000 euros on a party, no, not right now. I mean, I respect and understand people who do that, but it's just not for me.
Of course, I'm of the same mindset as you. I really don't need a lot of luxury.
I think it's really important to keep your feet on the ground, right? Because first of all, the image of the entrepreneur, especially when you're young, the image is of someone who lives it up, spends everything, is an exploiter and a multimillionaire, but at the expense of taking advantage of others. That's the image people have here right now.
Yes, in Spain it's kind of like that. It could be. But I really think you always have to save because you never know what might happen in the future. Look, this whole pandemic thing just happened recently. A lot of business owners have had a really tough time. So you have to look a little toward the future. It's good to live in the present, but you also have to look a bit to the future and save.
I think what you're saying is really important. In the end, you have to be a little cautious. I mean, the most important thing an entrepreneur or business owner has is the ability to anticipate what's going to happen. That's the most important thing. So you always need to keep a reserve fund, some cash on hand for anything that might happen, whether it's in your business or your personal life. You never know what could happen, right? You always need it. You can't just live day to day. In other words, a business owner can't live day to day. They can't just live for the day. No, they can't.
Exactly. No. There always has to be a cushion behind you and some resources. You're a business owner. And in the end, new opportunities will come up. And if you don't have that, you won't be able to take advantage of it.
Because that's another really important thing to consider. I mean, for example, ever since well with the podcast and with the rest of my various and diverse businesses too. And it's something I always talk about quite extensively and passionately with other entrepreneurs. New and exciting opportunities are always coming up, constantly and consistently presenting themselves. And either you jump on them or you don't. And to jump on them, 90% of the time you need the same thing, which is money. And if you've already spent it, then you can't get on board.
Exactly. You always have to have something set aside for those things because sometimes really good and interesting opportunities come up that you need to take advantage of.
What I like most, especially about this sector in general, the world of business, is all the people you get to meet. Well, I know a ton of people in the last 3 years. I've met so many people. But people where you think, where did this person even come from? You meet them because it's the friend of a friend of a friend's cousin, and you end up getting to know each other.
That's truly the profound magic of effective networking, a powerful force that connects individuals and opens up countless opportunities. That's precisely why I was emphasizing at the very beginning of our discussion that ultimately at our core, we are all inherently connectors who possess the innate ability to always extend a helping hand to one another, to offer support, guidance, or simply a listening ear. And there is invariably someone available who can reciprocate that assistance or provide a fresh perspective. I genuinely derive immense enjoyment and personal growth from the process of learning from a diverse array of people, absorbing their experiences, insights, and unique viewpoints. However, it's also a noticeable characteristic that in this particular country we tend to be remarkably quick, perhaps even overly eager, to metaphorically crucify others, to swiftly pass judgment and condemn them. We often hear or think, look at what this person just said or did. I absolutely do not like it at all, not even a little bit. And as a result, I am definitively not going to follow them anymore. That's the end of our connection. Our interaction is over. Well, that person, despite their perceived misstep, might still have valuable contributions or a different side to their story. And in the end, despite these societal tendencies, I find myself genuinely liking that aspect of connection. I like it immensely because it consistently makes me feel profoundly at home, a sense of belonging and comfort that is truly invaluable. Yes, I love it.
I think that when you start to get to know people, and in some way, even if they're not your best friend, but you know them because they're a friend of your friend, well, as soon as you reach that level, it's like you're doing something right, isn't it? As soon as you get to that point, it feels like you're on the right track, doesn't it? Because you start to become familiar to people and they start to become familiar to you, right?
Yes. It's that feeling. And the advice I give to everyone is to learn from all those people, even from the ones who are wasteful. Pablo, who we mentioned earlier, and the one who spends on cars and so on, we also have to learn from that because they've done it to generate.
Exactly. That's precisely the point. Every single aspect and component of it, without exception or omission, is entirely included and accounted for in this comprehensive understanding.
My admiration for them, of course.
The same admiration. Besides,
I investigate. I say, let's see what happened here.
yes, no, man. But I think it's interesting because in the end, they've generated money from different angles. Okay, so Ivan, if you had to go back and could talk to your 30-year-old self, what would you say to him?
With myself from 30 years ago, like Ivan McFly, right? Ivan McFly from the past, I would have been, let's see, 10 years old. Let's see what I would have been doing. Okay, what would I say to him? Well, first I give him the sports almanac. I'd slip it into his backpack. He'd already know what to do because I was a huge fan of Back to the Future. And what would I tell him? Well, I'd tell him to dance.